So today, thank you AWS Community Day Midwest, having us. We are an engineering group from Harvard Capital. My name is Shuen Mei. My role is VP and Director of Software and Data Engineer at Harvard Capital Advisors. Together with me is Parth Sharma, which he is the founder AI engineer for the company. Our topic today is boost productivity, innovation, and efficiency with a scalable RAG application on AWS. So we're going to share what we learned, our journey for Harvard's perspective to the community. A lot of the contents for this slide, the PPT, is actually generated by AI, except the two photos. The photos are real. So you see, like this morning when I grabbed my shirt, I almost grabbed the exact same shirt. I have multiple, same copy shirt. So I almost grabbed the same one. Same thing for Parth. He also almost like with the same thing, like, what? Let's make it a little bit different. So that's the reason you see me, if I do this way, you see like, with different shirts, very similar to the photo, My role at Harvard is I manage the software and data engineer team, which is in charge of everything engineer you can see. So you may ask a question, who are we? What is Harvard? In the industry, there are a lot of companies that called Harvard with that lighthouse icon. Harvard Freight, Harvard Investment, Harvard this. We are Harvard Capital Advisors. So what do we do? As a company, we are a financial investment company. It is asset management. Up to last quarter, our asset under management is around $60 billion. Still a relatively small company, I would say, but we are very nimble. We curate investment product for our client and for the community. Right? Our primary, investment sector will be focused on mutual fund, ETFs, CITs, and more recently, it's model portfolio product. We curated all these products in such a way that based on the client need. So it is more like a customized solution for the client. So a lot of times we deal with investment managers, sub-advisors, advisors. So sometimes people call us, hey, you guys, what do you guys do? We are manager of managers. We're not human manager. We are money manager, investment related activity managers. That's us. So like most of the companies, this part does not just apply to financial investment companies. We always have the same kind of situation you need to face. Data. Data is overloaded such a way, every day you accumulate massive data amount. Those massive amount of data, you need to do a lot of ETL data pipelines. I can easily, call you guys, hey, how many ETL jobs or data pipelines you guys have? Some people will say hundreds. Some people will say thousands. Not surprisingly, that's our daily life. Most of these ETL jobs, you have either your own code base or you use tools, or you even in AWS use AWS Glue, implement those systems. And you also have orchestration mechanisms. For example, the astronomer, those things like orchestrate all those jobs. All of these things will ingest the data into your company's storage mechanism. So a lot of these data, while we overloading this thing, data is grown in such a way, when you have the data, we need to make sure that data translate into what? Money, translate into profit, translate into something that is meaningful. We need to extract the value out of the data. So at Harvard, this is a challenge that we see. A lot of time we see massive data, then we need to see like, apparently with that amount of data, terabytes of data, hundreds of terabytes of data, it is very naturally think like, can we manually process? No, no way, okay? Most people will think like, hey, when we process data, you do some kind of data profiling, you do some kind of data probing to see the quality, to see all of these things, but eventually you try to automate the process. Automate in the process so that you convert the raw data from either it's internal generated or from your upstream vendor to your standardized, more like curated data, so that you can use those data for your business processes. And once the data is in such a format, the next thing that you do is, okay, you know what? How do I interpret the data? Interpret the data in this age from what we show here is, hey, you cannot think about like, hey, just interpret the data every day using human brain. Now, human brain is smart, but has a limit. We will make errors. Imagine you read the same article again and again. I can read article for probably 30 minutes. After 1 hour, I need a coffee. After another hour, I'm like, you know what? Let's do it tomorrow, right? So human interpretation for this thing, a lot of times will introduce also error into a system. And for financial companies, like I said, time means money. A lot of times you do not have the patience. You do not have a patience specifically for investment. You most of the time want the answer, want to extract the value from the data almost up to the minute. Not necessarily real time, but almost up to a minute, right? That's a challenge we see in investment industry. This slide actually is generated by Gen AI, okay? So we say, okay, you know what? Since we step from the traditional data-driven company into now Gen AI era, what kind of things that we're facing? Number one, we start from the information retrieval. With those data that massively created, curated for us, we need to retrieve the data at a reasonable pace, okay? At a reasonable pace. And AI can help that. AI not only help us to retrieve the data, but also process the data. Process the data, then you need to like generate a response with the right context. Okay, with the right context. We're going to introduce those in a little bit details in a couple of slides, all right? And eventually, all of these things will need to translate into a decision making, which is a part, extract the value out of data. And that is translated like times means money. Data means money. So, Parth is a very smart person, together with other engineers in the company, okay, developed a RAG application, developed a framework so that we can streamline all of this thing based on the context. Now, you may see that, you know what, the data is available to you. Data is available in the database, in your data warehouse, in your data lake. How do we get the data when you need it? People will think, you know what, I'm very quick. I can just, write a SQL query if the data is in the relational model. Yes, but not everyone has those skill set. So in order for everyone in the company, enable them to retrieve the data, specifically non-technical, non-engineering background folks, natural language is the way to go. Okay, this is the part that we enabled, empower the investment team, strategy team, sales team, that they can all use the same front end, empowered by the data that on the back end. Data, a lot of times, you have market data from the various exchanges, all right? Everyone said, I know that you guys do investment, right? New York Stock Exchanges, NASDAQ, all those market data, you consume it, okay? And also externally, we'll receive a lot of matrix, analytics, reports. Those are all financial related data. Internally, we also generate a lot of collections of those similar kind of stuff. So these forms the data inbound for your system. You need to digest all those things at a reasonable time. People don't have the wait patience. Imagine you are meeting with your client. Hey, client ask you, you know what? I want to invest in a product, but I want to know what is the return rate that you guys try to sell. Can you guys tell me what is the year to date, 3 months, 1 month, a week investment return? And how do you compare your product compared to the S&P 500 and compared to Russell 1000? So you have those kind of questions every day whenever you're facing a client. So we're going to say, hey, you know what? At almost real time, you need to provide those data. Some people will say, you know what? I'm very quick. Whenever I, facing the client, whenever I have a meeting with them, I prepare, multiple windows open. But you know what? Sometimes clear, you cannot predict what kind of questions that the client will ask. You prepared 1 month return data, they ask 3 months. You prepared answer for one question, you deal with the time that people, hey, hold on, can you stop here? I have a question that you need to answer, right? Make sure that you fulfill your client's question is a critical piece to get engagement. So the technology deck that we showed here should not surprise you. Okay, you probably hear this kind of component multiple times, and we utilize Lambda function a lot of times. We leverage Event Bridge to chain the S3 bucket with the backend Bedrock service, and we utilize container service to do deployment. We use CloudFormation to translate all the infrastructure as code. So not surprising to you. Okay, Bedrock is our friend. S3 is our friend. Our data lake implementation is primarily on S3. Okay, so with that said, to change this thing together, you're going to see that hey, we have a collection of data sources. Again, data is one. Data is a meat for all of the investment activity. So with that said, I would translate this thing into a typical use case that you're going to see in a financial service company. So the use case is like, okay, how do I provide a real-time access to return investment performance data? Now, the challenge that you're going to see is, hey, you know what? Investment teams, sales teams need quick insights into portfolio performance, need to access the portfolio performance comparison to the benchmark, to the industry benchmark. So that's the challenge that you see. The solutions that the engineering team together with our business team put together is, hey, you know what? With the RAG application and the framework that we're going to introduce here, integrated with the AWS data lake, together with financial data coming from various sources, either externally or internally, we can provide that capability. We can provide that capability real time. The result is that, okay, once this framework is working, it's data-driven, the decision-making person for the investment team, they can have the data almost real time. You do not need to memorize. You do not need to fetch the financial report. You do not need to work in such a stress mode that to get the data through the prompt. That's the way. This is a high-level landscape diagram. And as you can see, on the left side is pretty much the back end. On the right side is the front end. The back end, I will speak at high level. Deep dive will lead to a pause to the deep dive. Okay, the pre-processing on the back end is the data part. Now, how do we scale? Scale is very easy. Okay, once the framework is there, whenever you add more data, add more documents, add more even meeting notes, commentaries, reports, matrix, you just need to add a new block there, plug into the system. On the right-hand side is more like client-side user experience. You will enable multiple teams, okay? Through the right entitlement mechanism, each team can be granted to see the information that they're supposed to see, okay? Put it together It's the workflow. Okay, back end data, front end is the ChatGPT style application. So I would introduce my colleague Parth Sharma to the stage to do a little bit deep dive. Parth?
Thank you so much for the introduction, Shuen. In this segment, we will do a deep dive into the data pre-processing because I think this is the most crucial step in any RAG application as it lays the foundation, and how we prepare the data eventually translates to the quality of answers we will be getting on a RAG application. So how does this work? So at Harbor, we have a common web interface system where user can upload the data. After that, the files are validated. Due to some limitations on AWS Lambda functions, they only have runtime for 15 minutes. And the Bedrock API can only process 20 images at a time. So I need to validate the data and see if it exceeds 50 pages or more, then I have to chunk it and then create a separate document for that. After that, I'm only sending the PDF files to Claude model for the analysis and to generate the embeddings. But for CSV and all different kinds of files, they are directly embedded because I do not need to analyze them. And then the embeddings are stored in our OpenSearch vector database index. Each document has a separate index to be stored in. For those of you who do not know, index is just a document inside a vector database, for example, OpenSearch. And what the user sees here is a chatbot interface, and he has lots of drop down. Each drop down label is mapped to a certain type of document where the user can chat against with. So when a user types in a query on the chatbot, first we have to normalize the query. For me, normalization means to convert the uppercase into lowercase because everything in the embeddings are lowercase. And I actually tried playing with it. I typed in I typed in a caps query. It was retrieving wrong embeddings. So that's why this normalization step was very crucial for me. After that, I execute dual search, which is combining keyword search plus semantic search, which was able to perform better as compared to semantic search for me, for the user. And after we retrieve all the results from the vector database, those results are being passed into Claude API to get the answers. And that's how we are synthesizing the answers. Few optimization techniques which really helped us were adding metadata. We can enrich the index quality by giving it more context. For example, if I'm adding the time the document was generated at, that can really help to retrieve time-sensitive information. And the next thing is information density. This can be explained here. So let's say we want to chat against a simple website. Initial and most easy thing can be to just pull out the raw HTML, put it in vector database and chat against that. But that can lead to high token usage because we have certain HTML tags which are just redundant and we do not need them. So we can just pass the HTML to Claude to analyze and then put that analyzed information in the vector database to be analyzed with and chatted against with. And this for us reduced the search cost with up to 4 times. Second challenge for us was how to have a follow-up question. For example, first question can be, how is XYZ fund performing? The second follow-up question could be, how does this compare to last quarter? Now, here we do not have any name for a particular ETF, so we cannot do a keyword search and we cannot do a semantic search. We do not know which ETF the query is referring to. Here we used Converse API, which is provided by Bedrock. How that works is, in the message dictionary it appends all the conversation history and reformulates the user's query. On top of that, I also added last 2 or 3 conversation messages in the prompt itself to give the query more context. And that's how we are handling follow-up questions for now. And all the conversation, the history has been stored in DynamoDB, so the user can resume the session where he left. Now here I will give it back to Shuen for a few other challenges we face.
Thank you, Parth. And later, feel free to grab us, for detailed technical question, because we only have like 25 minutes, right? So the challenge that we are facing for any kind of Gen AI, related thing is, number one is, we didn't list the number one here is, avoid hallucination. Sometimes model will be, tricky, okay? Sometimes, the data, you don't have it, model will say, you know what, I guess is it? No. In that case, specifically for financial service company, guess is a disaster because of liability. Okay, imagine your sales team rely on the data to promote a product from your portfolio to your client. If it's based on guess, no, that's not good. On the other side, whatever the context response needs to be accurate in such a way that, hey, you know what? We're not looking for a decimal point to like 6 decimal point, but at least if the return of investment is 3.5, you should get 3.5 back. Okay. And with a citation is the raw back end data. So we focus on that a lot. Make sure that the retrieval response back to the client, the data is accurate. In that case, the teams inside the company, okay, whether it's sales team, invest team, trust the data, trust the application, trust the ecosystem that they rely on. And with that said, we also do a lot of data validations, multiple steps, okay? All of these is try to enhance the data accuracy. The response needs to be accurate. With that said, a lot of times, it also depends on how the team members ask the question. Depends on how they use the application. So we do a lot of trainings. Do a lot of training in such a way. We interview the various teams. Sales teams, they have their own habit. Investment team, strategy team, probably they use their own jargons. So we do interview a lot of times. We do user trainings. Make sure that, hey, they know the capacity of the application. They know the capacity of the feature. And of course, we also monitor the cost, right? Everything is doable, but at what cost? We also need to manage the overall ecosystem cost. Some of the techniques, Parth already mentioned, okay, we need to make sure, hey, token is managed, right? How many tokens that we utilize, not unlimited. So those are the challenges that we're facing. Another thing that we are seeing is, this slide is generated by AI, but we get the concept from DevOps. Most of engineers know DevOps, right? CI/CD continuously, iteratively improve the process. So similar way from our Harbor side, we try to, always also think about this thing. RAG and Gen AI, still it's evolving, relatively new. If you pay attention to the past couple years, there are debate in industry. Hey, you know what? How do we deal with this thing? What do you mean like Gen AI into this? How do we like make sure that our company get a stamp like AI empowered? People like have those kind of conversation a lot of times. You can hear those things. But for Harbor, this is the things that we do. Okay, we gather feedback. Not necessarily like every day, but weekly. We'll meet with a team. And we analyze the performance. We track the usage, analyze the performance. We do internal test, validate from engineering perspective, and we do deployment update. Nothing is perfect, but we at least from the engineering perspective, keep monitoring all these things. And of course, we also monitor the cost, okay, from AWS side. Hey, you know what? In the past week, how many things happened, how much it cost. We need to make sure that this thing is under control. All right. So we're always continuously monitor feedback, monitor feature, make sure that data is accurate, make sure that the response is latency is under control, not like a long. Nobody has patience to wait for 10 minutes to 15 minutes for the response. And all of these things, it's a circle. Iteratively improve the application. That is, from what we have so far, works relatively well. We get relatively, positive feedback from various teams. They are all relatively happy about the application. Feel free to connect with us. We are Harbor, relatively new to the community. We are very nimble, small company, only $60 billion under management. That's still a small company. We're open to the community. So feel free to connect us if you need to. And we'll stay around for a while. So if you have questions, hey, what's the secret for that thing? What's the secret for this thing? Feel free to knock on our door. And as a disclaimer, because financial service company always have heavy regulations, so I need to show this, but I'm not going to read it. All right? Yeah, I think that's it for today's presentation. Thank you very much for having us.